Okay, so now we're going to put that image into our HTML. And I want to show you something also in brackets really quickly, is that now that we have that folder, here, let's look at this folder here. Make sure that, okay, so our assignment 1 folder, this is referred to as our root level directory of the current project. So our project root is assignment 1 because it houses all of the files that we need to complete this website. And so this root has an index file, it has a folder called images, and inside of images is a file called pic400.jpg. And we actually really don't need this RTF anymore, so I could move that to the trash if I wanted. It's up to you. Okay, so now we have index and we have images. If I jump back over here now to brackets, you'll notice down here in my project folder area that I have the same thing. What it does is it catalogs everything in that project folder that you're currently working on. Okay, so that's kind of cool. So you can always take a quick peek if you wanted to look and see what images you have in here. It'll show you the picture that you have in case you're not, sure about which picture it is. Right, you can't really do anything with it here, but anyway, that's kind of useful. So I'm going to go back over here to index, and this also will help me understand what the relationship is in terms of the pathway, because the pathway is going to be really important. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop this down, this H1, I'm going to drop it down and come back up here, and I'm going to start typing out a tag called IMG, and it automatically wants to complete it, right? And then you'd put a space, and the attribute that you need to use it's called the source attribute, but it's not spelled out, it's SRC, right? And it'll let you complete it. And it's asking where to go find that picture. Well, what's really kind of nice is that it looks in your root level directory in your project root. As long as you've got everything inside that project root like you're supposed to, it'll ask you, well, where do you want to go? Do you want to link to index.html? No, that's not an image. Or go into the images folder. Well, let's choose the images folder. Okay, and then you can see the name here, and I double clicked on it. Let's back that up actually. Let's start to retype that again. So if I start typing SRC, because I think it'll actually complete it in a different way, and I hit enter images, then what it does is it builds a list of all the pictures that would be in that folder. Well, I only have the one picture, so I'm going to hit enter and it'll auto complete it for you. So that's really nice. That way, if you mistype something, you might accidentally mistype it normally. Well, this will prevent you from mistyping it. The other thing that's nice is if I hover over that photograph, it automatically shows me which picture it's trying to put in. That's kind of cool. All right, now I haven't completed the tag yet, so the tag name is IMG, the attribute is source, SRC, and then the value or the pathway is going to be images / pic-400.jpg. Okay, and I need what's called an alt tag, or not tag, excuse me, alt attribute. So I would put another space here, and then you see it gives me an option. I'm going to choose alt, and that stands for alternative text. Alternative text is something that's important to use for ADA compliance for people who are blind or have low vision. And the alt tag is, I keep calling it a tag, it's an attribute. The alt attribute, what it does is it provides a description so that someone who's blind will know what the content was supposed to be so that they're not missing out on any of the user experience. So in that, I would say headshot of Lee Cotner, something like that. Okay, and then now I can end my tag, and it's okay for you to end your tag in one of two different ways. You can either put / and an ending bracket, or you can just put an ending bracket. In HTML5, just having this bracket like that is acceptable. So this is what is referred to as a self-closing tag. They're also referred to as empty tags or void tags. I don't like those because they're not really void and they're not empty. But they're sort of self-closing. They don't have something that looks like this, where it's got a forward slash and then it repeats the name of the tag. It just ends, okay? That is one of the very few tags that is self-ending. There aren't that many. There are a handful of them. This is one of the ones that you'll use all the time, though. And all right, before I really do anything else with this, I want to also point something out to you about this pathway. Even though brackets is going to help you find your pictures if you put them in the right place, it's important to understand how pathways work. So right now, everything is in this assignment 1 root folder, okay? So if you were to look at this over here, it'll help you understand. Index is in the same, I like to think of all these things as sort of like being in a house, right? So the root level project folder, assignment 1, let's say that is the home, that's the house, right? And in that house, let's say when the minute you walk in the door, right there in sort of the I guess entryway or something, is index.html, right? Well, if index.html wanted to talk to pick 400, right? It can't. It'd be sort of like if there was a person in a room that was empty, right? The person that they wanted to talk to was like in the back of the house inside of a different room. They, chances are if they just started talking to that person, the person wouldn't even know that they were there, right? Well, that's the way that it works with broken links, okay? You can't just announce, if you're not in the same room as somebody else, you can't just start talking to them. You can't announce that you want to talk to them. What this file index.html would kind of have to do is it would have to like go to the back of the house. It would have to knock on the door of the images room and ask to speak to pick 400, all right? And that's kind of what this is doing. It's saying, hey, I need to find the images folder or the images room, and then this forward slash is sort of like knocking on the door and walking in the room, and then it can actually talk to pick 400. So it's kind of a goofy metaphor, but I think it really helps people understand how pathways work. And this is referred to as a relative pathway. There are these other things called absolute pathways. A relative pathway doesn't require that you know the name of all the folders that precede it. Okay, an absolute pathway would be something like http:// the domain name, blah, blah, blah. It'd be like if you needed from this house called assignment 1, if you needed to send a piece of mail to Canada, for instance, you'd have to have a full address, an absolute pathway to reach the person that you were trying to reach, okay? Okay, anyway, enough of that. Let's take a look and see how it looks. All right, we still have our browser window open, and you can see that this picture is not too gigantic. If your picture takes up like practically the whole top of the page or the whole page, then that means that you really need to go resize it. It's just way too big. Okay, and so it's not going to look a whole lot better than that right now, but don't worry, because you're going to take this first assignment, and then for the second assignment, you're basically going to style the first assignment, and that will be your second assignment. Okay, so now that we've got this here, that's kind of nice, right? That we actually have a picture. The other thing that we can do is if you wanted to tell it how big to be, you could do it through the HTML, but that is not a best practice. The best practice would be to do it through styling. But if you wanted to do it just to see what it looked like, you could come here and add another attribute called width. And you could tell it, width equals, right? And you could tell it to be like, I don't know, let's say 200. And then you have to put a unit of measure, which would be px for pixel. Let's just save that. And if you don't put a height, it should automatically do the correct height. You can see here that that's what it did. So if you want it to be smaller for right now, you could make it smaller, but in the second assignment, you will, if you do this, you will have to get rid of it. I will not deduct any points if your picture's kind of large right here, as long as it's not huge. I won't deduct any points or anything like that. Just know that if you leave this here, when you go to style it later, it's going to create a problem for you. So I'm going to just remove that. I did want to show that you can do that though. The thing is that that width will override your styling if you are not doing it properly later, and it causes problems. Okay, so that's how you add an image. Now let's see about adding a link. let's scroll to the bottom, and in the footer, let's just add a link that might, I don't know, take you to like Facebook, or if you wanted to go to your Facebook page, or if you have like an Instagram page or something like that, LinkedIn, whatever. I'm going to do something that takes me to my website. If you have your own website, you could do that too. All right, so the thing that you would use for a hyperreference, it's referred to as a hyperlink or a hyperreference, is an A tag. It stands for anchor, okay? It's the first one on the list, it's A. And then if I were to just do a tag like that, that technically is an A tag, but it's completely useless without attributes. For this particular tag, you must have attributes and values. So I'm going to go inside of the A tag, and I'm going to put space, and then I'm going to say H for href, and you'll see that it comes up in the list, href equals, and this is where if I wanted to link to a file that was inside of my current root, and if the file was already created, then I could go ahead and I could choose it from a list of file options here. But I'm going to use what I referred to earlier as an absolute link. So I'm going to do the full domain, fully registered domain address, which is http:// and then my website. You can put whatever you want, okay? And I'm going to put in between the A tags is what you're going to see that's clickable on the page. So I'm going to say visit my website, okay? And let's take a peek here. If we scroll down and we click, you see it's going to take me to my website, okay? All right, now the thing that you'll notice is that what it did was it refreshed in the same page. If I hit that back button, okay, what I need to do now is I need to go over here and I need to add an attribute so it opens in a new window so that I don't drive traffic away from my website. So another attribute at the end, I'm going to put a space and I'm going to type the word target, and it comes right up, and it gives me some different options: target blank, parent, self, top. There's also one that's called new that's not showing up. You can say target new, or you could say target blank. Either one is fine. Okay, HTML5 is the only one that supports target new. But so much of what we're doing is only supported in HTML5, so it's fine. Anyway, if I do that and come back over here, let's see. What I need to do now is now that I clicked away, I need to close this, and I need to come back over here, and we need to do a refreshment of our example. And you see here it opened in a brand new window, right? And so you can see that it took me to my website in a different window. And you can see that my old page is still here working just fine. Okay, so that's how you would make something like this. And there's also something else, by the way, like if you had a clickable image, you can, instead of putting words here where it says visit my website, if you wanted to put a picture inside of that, the picture would then become clickable. So you could do that as well. All right. And if you're going to open up something in a new window, one of the things that you can also put to help people who maybe are visually impaired or who have some sort of learning disability or cognitive disability is that you can put another attribute. You just put spaces in between all of these attributes, and you could say title equals, and then for the title you could say open in new window. And so what it does is it lets them know that it's going to open in a new window, because that can be jarring if you're on a blind person, let's say, and you're using a screen reader and you didn't realize that there was going to be something open in a brand new window. Okay, so this gives somebody a warning. The other thing that it does is that it shows up, if you come down here and you hover, it'll pull up a little tooltip basically that says open a new window. Okay, and if you hover over a website link or any kind of link, you should see where it's going to take you. Down here, if you look in the right hand corner, it's called the status bar. If you don't get that, you can always go into any browser's settings and their options and you can turn it on. It's a very useful thing to have whenever you are building websites and you need to sort of troubleshoot what's supposed to happen when you go hover over a link. Now, something else that would be really nice, since I'm all the way down here at the bottom of this page, is if I had a little link that I could click that jumped me back up to the top. So in the next video, I'll show you how to do some internal linking on your page.